Lieutenant Commander Lisa Carter stood at the bridge window of the UES Nightfall, watching the massive alien ships move into formation around them. The Xanthari Imperial fleet stretched across space like a wall of metal and fire. Each of their warships was 3 times larger than the Nightfall, covered in weapons that could destroy entire planets. The sight should have been impressive, but Lisa felt only concern. "Look at those beauties," said Captain Jake Morrison as he joined her at the window. "The Xanthari sure know how to build ships that look dangerous." Lisa nodded but kept her thoughts to herself. She had studied the Xanthari military for months before this mission. Their ships were powerful, but they were also predictable. Every vessel followed the same design. Every formation used the same patterns. It was like watching a dance where everyone knew the steps by heart. "Commander Carter, you are needed in the briefing room," came a voice from behind them. Lisa turned to see Ensign Tony Garcia, one of the youngest members of their crew. He looked nervous, which was not unusual when dealing with alien species for the first time. "Thank you, Ensign," Lisa replied. She straightened her uniform and walked toward the briefing room. Captain Morrison followed close behind. The briefing room was filled with beings from across the galaxy. Lisa recognized most of the species from her diplomatic training. The Xanthari were the largest group, with their tall, gray-skinned bodies and 4 arms. Commander Vexton stood at the head of the table, his red eyes scanning the room with obvious displeasure. Next to him sat 3 officers from the Hellenic Republic, their blue skin shimmering under the lights. 2 representatives from the Morgan Collective floated in their containment suits, their gaseous forms barely visible through the clear material. "Now that the humans have finally arrived," Commander Vexton began, his voice carrying a tone of annoyance, "we can discuss the mission parameters." Lisa took her seat next to Captain Morrison, ignoring the obvious insult. She had dealt with attitudes like this before. Many species in the Galactic Council still saw humans as newcomers who had barely left their home planet. It did not matter that humanity had been part of the Council for over 50 years now. "The pirate faction has established a base in the Kepler Nebula," Commander Vexton continued. "Our intelligence suggests they have approximately 30 vessels, mostly stolen merchant ships with basic weapons. This should be a simple elimination mission." Lisa studied the tactical display that appeared above the table. The pirate base was located deep within the nebula, surrounded by asteroid fields and electromagnetic storms. It was a good defensive position, but Vexton seemed to be treating it like an open battlefield. "Commander," Lisa said, raising her hand slightly, "have we considered the advantages the nebula gives to the defending force? The electromagnetic interference will limit our sensor range and communication capabilities." Vexton's S4 eyes turned toward her with what could only be described as contempt. "Lieutenant Commander Carter, your species has been in space for less than a century. The Xanthari have been conducting military operations for over 10,000 years. I believe we understand battlefield tactics." Several of the alien officers made sounds that Lisa recognized as their version of laughter. She felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment, but she kept her expression neutral. Captain Morrison placed a hand on her shoulder in support. "Of course, Commander," Lisa replied calmly. "I was merely offering an observation." "Your observations are noted," Vexton said dismissively. "Now, as I was saying, the assault will be straightforward. The Xanthari First Fleet will lead the primary attack. The Kelani ships will provide support from the flanks. The Morgan vessels will handle electronic warfare." Lisa waited for him to mention the human ships, but he seemed to have finished his tactical overview. "What about the human contingent?" Captain Morrison asked. "The human ships will remain in the rear guard," Vexton replied without looking at them. "Your vessels can provide medical support and rescue operations for any damaged ships that need assistance." Lisa felt anger building in her chest, but she forced herself to remain calm. The rear guard was where you put the ships you did not trust. In combat, it was a position for supply vessels and hospital ships, not for warships with trained crews. "Commander," she said carefully, "the Nightfall has advanced stealth capabilities and sophisticated sensor arrays. We could provide valuable reconnaissance during the assault. The Xanthari sensors are perfectly adequate for this mission, Vexthan replied. Your ship will remain with the other human vessels in the rear guard. That is final. The briefing continued for another hour, but Lisa barely listened. She watched the tactical display and studied the faces of the alien officers. They were all confident, perhaps too confident. They saw this mission as a simple matter of overwhelming force. Send in the biggest ships with the most weapons and crush anything that got in their way. After the briefing ended, Lisa walked back to the bridge with Captain Morrison. Neither of them spoke until they were alone. That was insulting, Morrison said quietly. It was predictable, Lisa replied. They see us as weak because we are new to their club. They measure strength by the size of guns and the thickness of armor. And how do you measure strength? Morrison asked. Lisa smiled for the first time since the briefing began. By the ability to adapt and overcome. By using your brain instead of just your weapons. She looked out at the alien fleet again. Tomorrow they would face the pirates, and she had a feeling that the overconfident aliens were about to learn a hard lesson. The pirates had survived in the nebula for months, fighting off previous attempts to remove them. They had to be doing something right. Captain, Lisa said, I want to review everything we know about these pirates. Their attack patterns, their ship configurations, their choice of base location. There is something about this situation that does not add up. Morrison nodded. I trust your instincts, Lisa. What do you need? Time and information, she replied. And maybe a little luck. As the fleet prepared for the assault, Lisa Carter began her own preparation. She would prove that humans could fight, but not in the way the aliens expected. She would prove that sometimes the smallest voice in the room had the biggest ideas. The joint fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler Nebula like a hammer falling on an anvil. Lisa Carter stood at her station on the Nightfall's bridge, watching the sensor displays as the massive alien ships spread into attack formation. The nebula stretched before them like a wall of purple and gold clouds, crackling with electromagnetic energy that made the stars beyond shimmer and dance. All ships report ready for combat, announced Commander Vexthan over the communications channel. His voice carried the confidence of someone who had never lost a battle. Xanthari First Fleet advanced to attack position. Lisa watched the tactical display as the huge Xanthari warships moved forward. They formed a perfect line, just like their training manuals said they should. Each ship was exactly the same distance from the next, their weapons pointing straight ahead. It was impressive to look at, but Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. They are moving like they are on parade, she whispered to Captain Morrison. What do you mean? He asked. Look at their formation. It is perfect, but it is also predictable. Any enemy watching them would know exactly what they are going to do next. Captain Morrison frowned. Maybe that is the point. Sometimes showing your strength is enough to make the enemy surrender. Lisa was not convinced, but she kept her doubts to herself. The human ships hung back in the rear guard position, watching as the alien fleet advanced into the nebula. The Kelani ships moved to support the flanks, their blue hulls gleaming in the strange light. The Morgan vessels disappeared into the electromagnetic storms, their electronic warfare systems already working to jam enemy communications. First, contact in 30 seconds, reported the sensor operator on the lead Xanthari ship. Lisa leaned forward, studying her own sensor display. The Nightfall's advanced systems could see deeper into the nebula than most of the alien ships, but even they were having trouble with the interference. She could make out shapes moving in the clouds ahead, but their exact numbers and positions were unclear. Contact, shouted the Xanthari sensor operator. Multiple enemy vessels emerging from the asteroid field. The tactical display lit up with red dots as the pirate ships appeared. Lisa counted them quickly and felt her stomach drop. There were not 30 ships, as the intelligence reports had said. There were over 60, and they were not converted merchant vessels with basic weapons. Those are military ships, she said. Aloud, what? Captain Morrison asked. The pirate vessels. Look at their energy signatures. Those are decommissioned military ships, not stolen merchant vessels. Someone gave them real warships? Before anyone could respond, the pirates opened fire. Streams of plasma and particle beams lanced out from the nebula, striking the leading Xanthari ships. The aliens had expected to face small weapons on cargo ships. Instead, they were being hit by military-grade cannons that could punch through their shields in seconds. All ships evasive maneuvers, Commander Vexton ordered, but his perfect formation was already falling apart. The pirates did not fight like the aliens expected. Instead of meeting the fleet head-on, they struck from multiple directions at once. Some ships emerged from behind asteroids, others dropped out of the upper levels of the nebula, and still more came from the flanks where the colony ships were supposed to be protecting the formation. They knew we were coming, Lisa realized. They knew our exact approach vector and formation. The first Xanthari ship exploded in a ball of fire and metal. The second took critical damage to its engines and began to drift helplessly. The third tried to turn away from the attack, but a pirate vessel that had been hiding in the electromagnetic storms struck it from below. "This is Commander Vexton to all ships," came the panicked voice over the communications channel. "We are taking heavy casualties. Request immediate support." But the support was already falling apart. The colony ships on the flanks were being overwhelmed by pirates who seemed to know exactly where they would be. The Morgan electronic warfare vessels were being jammed by systems that were more advanced than anything the pirates should have had. Lisa watched in horror as the carefully planned assault turned into a complete disaster. The alien ships were brave, but they were fighting the wrong battle. They had prepared for a simple raid against desperate pirates, not a coordinated defense by experienced military forces. "Captain," she said urgently, "we need to get the fleet out of here. This is not a pirate base. This is a trap." "What are you talking about?" Morrison asked. "Look at the patterns," Lisa said, pointing at the tactical display. "The pirates are not fighting like criminals. They are fighting like a military unit. They have discipline, coordination, and intelligence about our forces. Someone has been feeding them information about Galactic Council tactics." Another Xanthari ship exploded, and Lisa could see escape pods launching from the wreckage. The pirates were picking off the alien ships one by one, using their knowledge of Council formations and tactics to predict every move. Commander Vexton S. "Flagship is taking heavy damage," reported the communications officer. "He is calling for immediate evacuation." Lisa made a decision that would have gotten her court-martialed under normal circumstances. She opened a channel to all ships in the fleet. "This is Lieutenant Commander Carter to all vessels. The enemy has inside knowledge of our tactics. They are using our own formations against us. All ships break formation immediately and retreat to minimum safe distance." "You do not have authority to give those orders," came an angry voice from one of the colony ships. "I have authority to save lives," Lisa replied. "Look at your tactical displays. We are being slaughtered because we are fighting exactly the way they expect us to fight." More ships began to pull back from the battle, but it was too late for many of them. The pirates had achieved their goal. They had broken the back of the Joint Fleet's assault and proven that they were not the simple criminals the Council had believed them to be. Commander Vexton S. flagship limped away from the battle, its hull cracked in bleeding atmosphere. The proud Xanthari commander, who had dismissed human tactical advice just hours earlier, was now calling for help from anyone who would listen. "All ships retreat to Rally Point Delta," came the order from the surviving senior officer. "We will regroup and assess casualties." As the battered fleet pulled away from the nebula, Lisa stared at the tactical display. The pirates had won this round, but she was already analyzing everything she had seen. The aliens had failed because they had fought like aliens. The pirates had won because they had fought like humans, and Lisa Carter was beginning to understand exactly what that meant. The emergency meeting took place 12 hours after the failed assault. The surviving commanders gathered in the conference room of the Kalani flagship, their faces showing the strain of defeat. Commander Vexton sat at the head of the table, his gray skin pale and his forearms moving restlessly. A medical bandage covered half of his head where flying debris had struck him during the battle. We lost 18 ships, announced Captain Mordek of the Kelani Republic. Over 3,000 crew members are dead or missing. This is the worst defeat in Council military history. Lisa sat quietly next to Captain Morrison, watching the alien commanders argue among themselves. They were angry, confused, and looking for someone to blame. The Xanthari accused the Kelani of failing to protect the flanks. The Kelani blamed the Morgan for inadequate electronic warfare. The Morgan claimed their systems had been overwhelmed by technology they had never seen before. The intelligence was wrong, Commander Vexton said, his red eyes burning with rage. We were told 30 converted merchant ships. Instead, we faced military vessels with advanced weapons and tactics. The question is what we do now, Captain. Mordek replied. Do we call for reinforcements from the Council? Do we withdraw and report our failure? Lisa had been listening to the same arguments for an hour. The alien commanders were thinking like generals who had lost a traditional battle. They wanted more ships, bigger weapons, and better intelligence. They were missing the real problem. Entirely. Permission to speak, Lisa said quietly. The room fell silent. All eyes turned toward her, and Lisa could feel the weight of their stares. Some looked at her with curiosity, others with barely hidden contempt. Commander Vexton's expression suggested he blame the humans for giving him bad advice about retreating. Lieutenant Commander Carter, Captain Mordek said with forced politeness, what are your thoughts? Lisa stood up and walked to the tactical display. She touched the controls, and the screen showed the battle they had just fought. Red dots marked the pirate positions, blue dots showed the Council ships, and yellow lines traced the movement of both forces. We are thinking about this wrong, she began. Everyone is asking why our intelligence was bad, or why our ships were not strong enough. But look at the patterns. She highlighted the pirate movements on the display. The enemy ships did not just have better weapons, they had better tactics. They knew exactly where we would be and exactly how we would attack. They fought like they had been studying Council military doctrine for years. Of course they studied our tactics, Commander Vexton interrupted. Any competent enemy would do intelligence gathering. No, Lisa said firmly, they did not just study our tactics. They understood them. They knew not just what we would do, but why we would do it. They predicted our formations, our timing, even our retreat patterns. That level of understanding does not come from studying reports or watching battles from a distance. She paused and looked around the room. The alien commanders were listening now, their anger replaced by curiosity. The enemy commander is thinking like a human, Lisa continued. Council tactics are based on honor, tradition, and proven methods. Every species has their own way of fighting, but they all follow rules. Humans do not follow rules in war. We adapt, we improvise, we use whatever works. Captain Morrison leaned forward. Are you saying the pirates are human? No, Lisa replied. I'm saying they are fighting like humans. They are using human approaches to warfare. Deception, misdirection, using the enemy's strength against them. They won not because they had better ships, but because they thought differently. She manipulated the display again, showing the pirate base deep in the nebula. Look at where they chose to build their base. It is not the strongest position or the most defensible. It is the most adaptive. They can strike from multiple directions, retreat into the storms, and use the environment as a weapon. So, what do you propose? Ask Captain More single quotes Doc. Lisa took a deep breath. She knew her next words would either save the mission or end her career. We stop fighting like the Council expects us to fight. We stop using formations and tactics that are 3,000 years old. We start fighting like humans. The room erupted in angry voices. Commander Vexton slammed his fist on the table. You're suggesting we abandon centuries of proven military doctrine to follow the ideas of a species that has been in space for less than 100 years? I am suggesting we abandon military doctrine that just got 18 ships destroyed, Lisa replied calmly. The enemy is expecting us to regroup, get reinforcements, and attack again with the same tactics. They are counting on us to be predictable. What exactly are you proposing? Captain Mordek asked. Lisa walked back to the tactical display and zoomed in on the pirate base. We do not attack the base. We infiltrate it. We use the Nightfall's stealth capabilities to get inside their defenses. We do not try to destroy their ships in open battle. We disable their command structure from within. That is suicide, Commander Vexton said. It is unexpected, Lisa corrected. The enemy has prepared for another fleet engagement. They have. Not prepared for a small team to appear inside their base? They are thinking like military commanders, not like criminals? She turned to face the alien commanders. Give me a small team and the Nightfall. Let us try something they will not see. Coming. If we fail, you can call for reinforcements and attack again. But if we succeed, we can end this without losing any more ships. The room fell silent again. Lisa could see the alien commanders weighing her words. They had just suffered a devastating defeat using their traditional methods. The idea of trying something completely different was either brilliant or insane. What would you need? Captain Morrison asked. A small team of specialists, Lisa replied. People who can think on their feet and adapt to changing situations. And most importantly, people who are willing to fight like humans instead of like council officers. Commander Vexton stared at her for a long moment. His red eyes seemed to be measuring her, trying to decide if she was brave or foolish. One attempt, he said finally. If you fail, we call for reinforcements and you never question council tactics again, Lisa nodded. Understood, Commander. But when we succeed, I want you to remember that sometimes the best way to win a fight is to refuse to fight the way your enemy expects you to. She looked around the room one more time. Tomorrow, she would either prove that human thinking could succeed where alien tactics had failed, or she would die trying. Either way, she would not be underestimated again. The Nightfall drifted through the outer edges of the Kepler Nebula like a ghost ship. Its stealth systems were running at maximum power, bending light and absorbing sensor sweeps. Lisa Carter stood in the cargo bay with her hand-picked team, checking their equipment one final time. Remember, she said quietly, we are not here to fight a battle. We are here to end one. Stay quiet, stay smart, and follow my lead. Sergeant Amy Collins nodded as she secured her sidearm. She was a former Marine who had volunteered for diplomatic security duty, but her combat instincts were still sharp. What if we run into more resistance than expected? Then we adapt, Lisa replied. That is what humans do best. Technical specialist. Ryan Brooks was hunched over his portable computer, studying the layout of the pirate base they had managed to scan. The main command center is here, he said, pointing to a section near the center of the asteroid base. But there are secondary control rooms scattered throughout the structure. If they are smart, they will have backup systems. Lisa studied the display. The pirate base was built inside a hollowed-out asteroid with docking bays, weapon platforms, and living quarters carved directly into the rock. It was a fortress that could withstand a direct assault, but it also had weaknesses that the pirates probably had not considered. They built this base to fight off fleets, she said. They are not expecting someone to walk in through the front door. The team moved to the airlock as the Nightfall approached the outer perimeter of the base. Captain Morrison's voice came through their communicators. Lisa, you are clear to launch. The stealth pod is ready, and our sensors show no enemy patrols. In your area. Understood, Captain, Lisa replied. Keep the ship ready for a quick exit. If this goes wrong, do not wait for us. Good luck, Morrison said. The stealth pod launched from the Nightfall's cargo bay, carrying Lisa and her team toward the pirate base. The small craft was designed for reconnaissance missions, with advanced cloaking technology that made it nearly invisible to most sensors. Lisa piloted the pod manually, using her training to navigate through the asteroid field without triggering any alarms. There, Ryan whispered, pointing to a section of the base where the rock face looked different. Service entrance. Probably. For maintenance crews working on the outer hull. Lisa guided the pod toward the entrance, matching the rotation of the asteroid perfectly. The magnetic clamps engaged with barely a sound, and the team prepared to enter the base. The service airlock was exactly what they had hoped for. It was automated, designed to let maintenance crews in and out without bothering the command staff. Ryan's computer skills made short work of the simple security system, and within minutes they were inside the pirate base. The interior was a maze of corridors carved from solid rock. Emergency lighting cast strange shadows on the walls, and the air recycling system hummed constantly in the background. Lisa led her team deeper into the base, following the layout Ryan had memorized. "Movement ahead," Amy whispered, raising her weapon. Lisa held up a hand for silence. Around the corner, she could hear voices speaking in the harsh language of the Skargan species. She recognized the words from her diplomatic training. They were complaining about guard duty and wondering when their shift would end. 2 guards. She whispered to her team. "Standard patrol. We take them quietly." But instead of attacking, Lisa did something unexpected. She walked around the corner with her hands empty and visible. "Excuse me," she said in perfect Skargan. "I am looking for the waste processing center. I think I am lost." The 2 guards stared at her in shock. They were expecting many things, but not a polite human asking for directions in their own language. "Who are you?" one of them demanded, reaching for his weapon. "Maintenance crew," Lisa replied, showing them a fake work order that Ryan had prepared. "New hire. Boss said to check the waste recyclers in Section 7, but these corridors all look the same to me." The guards relaxed slightly. The base was huge, and new workers got lost all the time. One of them pointed down a side corridor. "Section 7 is that way," he said. "But watch out for the security checkpoints. They have been extra careful since the big battle." "Thanks," Lisa said with a smile. "I really appreciate the help." She walked away casually and her team followed. The guards watched them go, then returned to their conversation about boring duty assignments. "That was brilliant," Amy whispered once they were out of earshot. "You made them think we belonged here." "The best way to infiltrate a base is to act like you are supposed to be there," Lisa replied. "People see what they expect to see." They continued deeper into the base, using the same technique whenever they encountered guards or workers. Lisa's diplomatic training had taught her dozens of alien languages, and she used that knowledge to blend in perfectly. To anyone watching, they looked like a maintenance crew doing routine work. The real challenge came when they reached the command center. The security here was much tighter, with armed guards and scanning equipment. Lisa studied the setup from a hidden position, analyzing the patterns of the guards and the layout of the defenses. "This is where we stop being polite," she whispered to her team. But even here, Lisa chose an unexpected approach. Instead of fighting their way in, she used the base's own systems against it. Ryan hacked into the maintenance computer and triggered a false alarm about a radiation leak in the lower levels. Emergency protocols activated automatically, and half the guards were sent to investigate. "Confusion is our friend," Lisa said as they moved toward the now lightly defended command center. "The enemy is reacting to us instead of acting on their own plans." The remaining guards were easy to avoid. Lisa's team slipped past them like shadows, using maintenance tunnels and service corridors to reach their target. When they finally entered the command center, they found something that made Lisa's blood run cold. The main display showed detailed plans for attacks on Council worlds. The pirates were not just criminals hiding in a nebula. They were planning to strike at the heart of galactic civilization. "Ryan," Lisa whispered, "start downloading everything. We need to know what they are planning." "Already on it," Ryan replied, plugging his computer into the main console. "But Lisa, look at this. These are not pirate plans. This is a full military operation." Lisa studied the displays around the room. Ship movements, target lists, coordination with other criminal groups. The scope was enormous. "This is not about piracy," she realized. "This is about starting a war." Amy moved to the door, keeping watch for guards. "How long do we need?" 10 more minutes, Ryan said, his fingers flying over the computer keys. Lisa began placing small charges around the room, not to destroy the equipment, but to disable it at the right moment. The pirates would think their base was safe until the moment. She chose to reveal otherwise. The art of human warfare was not about fighting harder than the enemy. It was about fighting smarter, using deception and timing to win before the battle even began. Ryan's computer screen flashed with data as he copied the pirate files. Lisa watched the download progress while keeping one eye on the security monitors. The command center was quiet, but she knew that would not last long. 60% complete, Ryan whispered. These files are huge. There are communications with other criminal groups across 3 sectors. Lisa studied the tactical displays around the room. The pirates had been planning their operations for months, maybe years. They had detailed information about council ship movements, defensive positions, and military protocols. Someone high up in the Galactic Council was feeding them intelligence. There, Amy said from her position by the door. Someone is coming. Lisa looked at the security monitor and saw 2 guards walking toward the command center. They were not rushing, just doing a routine check, but they would be here in less than 2 minutes. How much more time do you need? Lisa asked Ryan. At least 5 minutes, he replied, sweat beading on his forehead. Maybe more if the files are encrypted. Lisa made a quick decision. Keep working. I will handle the guards. She walked to the main control console and began typing commands. The base's computer system was military-grade, but Lisa had studied dozens of different alien computer systems during her diplomatic training. Every species designed their computers differently, but they all had the same basic functions. What are you doing? Amy asked. Creating a distraction, Lisa replied. She found the environmental controls and began adjusting the air recycling system. In 30 seconds, every alarm in Section 4 is going to start screaming about an oxygen leak. The guards were almost at the door when the alarms began. Lisa watched on the security monitor as they stopped, looked at each other, and then ran toward Section 4. Emergency lights began flashing throughout the base, and she could hear voices shouting in the distance. 80%, Ryan announced, almost there. But the distraction had attracted attention. Lisa could see more guards moving through the corridors, and some of them were heading toward the command center to check on the computer systems. We have company, Amy said, raising her weapon. 6 guards, moving fast. Lisa looked at the download. Progress, 90%. They were so close, but not close enough. New plan, she said. Ryan, how long to finish? 2 minutes, maybe less. Amy, we need to buy him time. Lisa moved to another console and began typing furiously. I am going to give these pirates something to really worry about. She accessed the base's internal communication system and began broadcasting a message throughout the entire facility. But instead of speaking in human English, she spoke in the language of the Xanthari military. Attention all personnel, she announced in perfect Xanthari. This is Commander Vexton of the Imperial Fleet. Our assault teams have penetrated your base. Surrender immediately or face complete destruction. The effect was immediate. Throughout the base, pirates began shouting and running in panic. They thought the Xanthari had somehow gotten inside their fortress. Lisa watched the security monitors. As guards abandoned their posts and ran toward the docking bays. You are insane, Amy said with admiration. They think we are a full invasion force. Fear is a weapon, Lisa replied. And right now, fear is working for us. She continued the psychological assault, broadcasting false reports about Xanthari boarding parties and council reinforcements. The pirates' own communication system was spreading panic faster than any real attack could have managed. Done, Ryan shouted. I have everything. Ship positions, target lists, communications with their contacts in the council. This is enough evidence to bring down their entire network. Lisa began activating the charges she had placed around the room. But instead of destroying the equipment, the small explosives would disable the control systems and make it look like the damage came from weapons fire. Time to go, she said. But we are not leaving the same way we came in. Amy looked confused. What do you mean? Lisa pointed to the security monitors. Look at the docking bays. Half the pirates are trying to escape, and the other half are preparing to fight an invasion that does not exist. The main docking bay is in complete chaos. She led her team out of the command center and toward the central part of the base. But instead of heading for their hidden pod, Lisa took them directly toward the main docking bay where the pirate ships were launching in panic. "This is crazy," Amy muttered as they ran through corridors filled with shouting aliens. "This is brilliant," Ryan corrected. "Nobody is going to notice 3 humans in the middle of an evacuation." They reached the docking bay just as another group of pirates was boarding a small transport ship. Lisa walked up to them with complete confidence, still speaking in Xanthari. "You 3, she barked at her own team, "secure that ship for inspection. Check for any council prisoners being held aboard." The pirates stared at her in confusion. They could see she was human, but she was speaking like a Xanthari officer and acting like she owned the place. In the chaos of the evacuation, they could not process what they were seeing. "Who are you?" one of the pirates demanded. "Intelligence officer," Lisa replied smoothly, switching to the pirate's own language. "Working with the Xanthari assault. Force, we have reports that council prisoners are being held on this level. Have you seen any?" The pirate's eyes widened. "Prisoners?" "Yes, there are council prisoners in detention block 7. But we thought they were dead." Lisa felt her heart race. "There were actually prisoners here, probably survivors from the ships that had been destroyed in the first battle." "Show me," she ordered. The pirate led them through the base toward the detention area. Lisa could hardly believe it was working. By acting like she belonged here and speaking with authority, she had turned an enemy into a guide. Detention block 7 was exactly what she had feared to find. 23 council officers were locked in small cells, including several Xanthari who had been captured when their ships were destroyed. They were alive, but barely. The pirates had been keeping them as potential bargaining chips. "Commander." "Vexen S. Tactical Officer," Lisa recognized one of the prisoners. "Can you walk?" "I can fight," the Xanthari replied grimly. Lisa began opening the cell doors while Amy and Ryan stood guard. The released prisoners were weak, but they were trained military officers. They would be valuable allies in getting everyone off the base. "Listen carefully," Lisa told the group of rescued prisoners. "We are leaving together right now. Follow my lead and do exactly what I say. We are going to walk out of here like we own the place." She led the expanded group back toward the docking bays, but now she had a new plan. Instead of sneaking out in their small pod, they were going to steal a pirate ship and fly out in the open. "Trust me," she told the confused prisoners. "Sometimes the best place to hide is in plain sight." The chaos in the docking bay had only gotten worse. Pirates were launching ships in every direction, trying to escape what they thought was a massive council assault. Lisa's group walked calmly through the madness, heading for a medium-sized transport that was being prepared for launch. "That one," she said, pointing to the ship. "We are commandeering it for the mission," nobody questioned her. In the middle of a panic, people wanted someone to take charge and tell them what to do. Lisa was happy to be that someone. They boarded the transport ship just as the last of her charges detonated in the command center. The pirate base shuddered, and more alarms began screaming throughout the facility. "Now we leave," Lisa said as Ryan took the pilot's seat. "And we take all their secrets with us." The transport launched from the docking bay and headed toward the edge of the nebula. Behind them, the pirate base was in complete chaos. With ships fleeing in every direction and commanders shouting contradictory orders, Lisa had not just rescued the prisoners. She had completely destroyed the pirate organization without firing a single shot. She had proven that the best weapon in any war was not a gun or a bomb, but a mind that could think 3 steps ahead of the enemy. The stolen transport ship emerged from the Kepler Nebula like a ghost returning from the dead. Behind them, the pirate base was still in chaos, with ships fleeing in every direction and emergency signals flooding the communication channels. Lisa Carter sat in the co-pilot's seat, watching the joint fleet come into view on the scanner. "This is transport vessel Delta 7 requesting permission to dock," Ryan said into the communicator using the ship's original identification codes. "Delta 7, you are not scheduled for departure," came the confused reply from the fleet communications officer. "Please state your purpose and destination." Lisa took the communicator from Ryan. "This is Lieutenant Commander Lisa Carter with..." 23 rescued Council prisoners and critical intelligence data. Requesting immediate docking with the command ship. The silence that followed lasted almost 10 seconds. Then Commander Vexton's voice came through the speaker, filled with disbelief. Lieutenant Commander Carter, how did you... Where did you get that ship? It is a long story, Commander, Lisa replied. But we need medical attention for the prisoners and a secure briefing room for the intelligence we gathered. 2 hours later, Lisa stood in the main briefing room of the Kelani flagship, surrounded by the senior officers of the Joint Fleet. The rescued prisoners had been taken to Medical Bay, where doctors were treating injuries and malnutrition. On the table in front of Lisa sat Ryan's computer, displaying the files they had stolen from the pirate base. This is impossible, Captain Morduck said, staring at the data. These communication logs show contact with officials in the Council Defense Ministry. Someone has been selling our military secrets? Lisa nodded grimly. The pirates were not just criminals, Captain. They were part of a larger conspiracy to destabilize the Galactic Council. The attack on our fleet was meant to prove that Council forces could be defeated by a small criminal organization. Commander Vexton leaned forward, his forearms folded. Across his chest, "You're saying this was a political operation? I'm saying this was a test," Lisa replied. "Someone wanted to see how we would react to an unexpected defeat. They wanted to study our tactics and our response patterns. Every move we made was being watched and analyzed." She manipulated the display to show a star map marked with target locations. "These are their real objectives. Military shipyards, communication centers, and council assembly worlds. The pirate base was just the beginning. The alien commanders studied the information in stunned silence. The scope of the conspiracy was enormous, involving dozens of criminal groups and corrupt officials across multiple sectors. How did you discover all this?" asked Captain Morduck. Lisa smiled slightly. "We did not fight them the way they expected. U.S. to fight. They were prepared for another fleet assault, not for a small team to walk through their front door and steal their computers." "You walked through their front door?" Commander Vexton asked. "Sometimes the most direct approach is the most unexpected," Lisa replied. "We acted like we belonged there, and nobody questioned us. By the time they realized what was happening, we were already leaving with their prisoners and their secrets." Amy Collins, who had been standing quietly in the corner, stepped forward. "Permission to speak, Commander?" Vexton nodded. "I have served in human military units for 8 years, Amy said. "What Lieutenant Commander Carter did today was not unusual for human tactics. We train to think independently, to adapt to changing situations, and to use the enemy's assumptions against them. Every human soldier learns these methods." Ryan Brooks looked up from his computer. The intelligence files also contained detailed information about other criminal operations. "We can use this data to shut down their entire network before they launch. They're real attacks." Commander Vexton was quiet for a long moment, his red eyes studying Lisa's face. When he finally spoke, his voice was different than it had been before. The contempt was gone, replaced by something that might have been respect. "Lieutenant Commander Carter," he said formally, "I owe you an apology. I dismissed your tactical suggestions because I believed human military experience was limited. I was wrong." "You were not wrong about our experience, Commander," Lisa replied. "Humans have been in space for less than a century, but we have been fighting wars on our home planet for thousands of years. We learned to be adaptable because we had to be. Our enemies were always human, which meant they could think and plan just like us. We had to become unpredictable to survive." Captain Morduck leaned back in his chair. "You are saying that human warfare is more advanced because your species fought each other instead of external enemies." "I am saying that human warfare is different," Lisa corrected. "Council species develop military tactics to fight external threats or to maintain order. Human tactics were developed to fight other humans who were just as smart and just as desperate. We learned to think like our enemies because our enemies thought like us." The briefing continued for another hour as The fleet commanders studied the intelligence data and planned their response to the larger conspiracy. But Lisa could see that something fundamental had changed in how they looked at her and her suggestions. 3 days later, the Joint Fleet had successfully dismantled the entire criminal network using the intelligence Lisa's team had gathered. Instead of fighting pitched battles, they used targeted strikes and coordinated arrests to capture the key leaders. The conspiracy that had threatened the entire Galactic Council was ended without firing a shot. Lisa stood on the observation deck of the Nightfall, watching as human and alien crews worked together to process the captured criminals and secure the evidence. Captain Morrison joined her at the window. The Xanthari have formally requested human tactical advisors for all future operations, he said. The Kelani want to establish an exchange program with our military academy. Even the Morgan are asking for lessons in what they call adaptive thinking. Lisa nodded but did not smile. They will learn what we can teach them. But they will never fight exactly like humans because they do not think like humans. Every species has their own strengths. And what is humanity's strength? Morrison asked. Lisa watched a group of human and Xanthari technicians working together on a damaged sensor array. The aliens were following the technical manual exactly, while the humans were improvising solutions based on available materials. Both approaches were working, but in different ways. Our strength is that we do not have just one strength, she said finally. We adapt, we change. We become whatever the situation requires us to become. That is what makes us dangerous to our enemies and valuable to our allies, Morrison smiled. Commander Vexton said something similar yesterday. He said that fighting alongside humans is like having a weapon that changes into whatever tool you need most. I hope he meant that as a compliment, Lisa said. He did. He also said that he would never underestimate human tactical thinking again. Lisa looked out at the stars beyond the observation window. The galaxy was a big place, full of different species with different ways of thinking and fighting. Humanity had found its place not by being the strongest or the smartest, but by being the most adaptable. We did not prove them wrong about us. Not being fighters, she said quietly. We proved them wrong about what fighting really means. In the weeks that followed, human officers would be assigned to mixed crews throughout the Galactic Council fleet. They would bring with them not just their tactical knowledge, but their way of thinking about problems and solutions. The galaxy would become a little more unpredictable, and therefore a little more secure. Lisa Carter had not set out to change how the galaxy thought about warfare. She had simply done what humans do best. She had adapted to the situation and found a way to win. But in doing so, she had proven that sometimes the most powerful weapon in any conflict is a mind that refuses to think like everyone else expects it to.